Alright, welcome students. I guess we're ready for the next project, and that is, I was going to do design a video game character, but I've changed it to design an article of clothing. I know a lot of you were interested in doing that. So I found this this thing on Reddit that showing just different types of jackets and stuff, and these are illustrations of clothes that we wear. And I know a lot of students told me that they want to do illustrations of clothing. So I know a lot of you also talked about soccer shoes, and so I chose this photo of a soccer shoe as my template. Now I'm not telling you that I want you to find an illustration of a soccer shoe. I'm telling you I want you to find a photo of a soccer shoe. So when you go to look for soccer shoes or whatever you want to do, any article of clothing, a dress or whatever, any of these would be fine. What I don't want is for you to go to an illustration of a soccer shoe like one of these. Those are off limits. You are going to work off of a photo for this. Otherwise, it's the exact same as the cartoon assignment, and I want us to keep moving further in our learning. So we go into this program, and this is what I did with it. And to be honest, it was incredibly difficult. In fact, I've spent exactly 1 hour working nonstop to create this, and there's lots of different parts, and you'll notice these weird little lines because I'm using something called a mesh tool. There's a lot of different layers here. If you can look over here, you'll see that I'm working with lots and lots and lots of different layers from every single lace, which I duplicated. Just click Alt and move and rotate it to make those copies. It wasn't that bad. But I also want to just keep in mind here that I'm not asking you to replicate. Not only do I want you to choose a different color scheme, I also want you to completely re-image all of the logos and the graphics and just basically create your own. And I know I kind of cheated by doing the swooshes, even though they're not the Nike swooshes. They're still kind of the same basic idea, and I probably could have done better, but I was starting to get a little bit out of time, and I cut a few corners there. But I do want you to kind of think of your own design patterns and what you might want to do. Just kind of, more than knocking off Nike. So to start us off, I know that most of this you can probably kind of figure out on your own. I want you to think about it as objects broken up by color, which means I had to create a separate, oops, let me get this selection tool out instead of the direct selection tool. This is a separate object than this, which is that little part that goes underneath it. This cleat is a separate object than this cleat. I have the inside of the sock, or of the shoe. I have this little back part that comes up right here, that little inside part. I have this little, I don't know, tongue or whatever you call it. The laces, that little thing underneath the laces. So you got to break it down by that. If you don't do it correctly, it's going to be very, very tricky. Start with the biggest basic object. Don't do the cleats though when you create it, because if you do, you'll have to. It's so much easier if you can just put the cleats right behind it. Boom, and then there it is, and it fits right in. Otherwise, if you take the time to trace the cleats, then you're going to have to redo all that itself. But before we get into that, I got a little exercise I want you to try, and that's something you'll notice that this has like kind of a shine on it. That's not a gradient. It's actually called a mesh. And meshes, I'm finding, are very tricky to work with, but I want you to get some practice with them. So what we're going to do real quick is just create a ellipse, holding down shift to make it perfect, and just choose a basic color for this ellipse. I'll just go ahead and I don't know, give it a red, whatever you want to give it, doesn't matter. Now we're going to use this thing called the mesh tool, and I am no expert at the mesh tool. I'm just learning it myself. But basically, you click on one spot, and it will attempt to find the edges, and it will create this thing right here. You basically want to make sure that you kind of pick areas that are away from each other, and you'll notice that at every intersection, it creates a new dot, and those are your mesh points. So let's say that I want to make this look like it is rounded. Well, rather than using a gradient, I click on this point, and then I'll just go up here to my swatches to make it easier, and that's just all your color selections, and then I'll just give this one a lighter area. And there you go. You got a shine on it, or maybe a pink. I don't know. Or maybe it's fall and I want it to show, I don't know, whatever you want. And then you click on this one, and you want it to be, I don't know, white. There you go. There it is. So it'll blend these colors together. So if you have a few of them, it'll blend the yellows and the reds and all that stuff. You'll notice a red outline because that was our base. But if you wanted to change that as well, you could click on each of those points, and there you go. So where is this useful? Please play around with that for a second and just kind of see. Where this is useful is when you want to create shines like this. There's other ways of doing it, but it's a pretty cool way. You'll notice my mesh is very irregular and weird, and you're gonna have to play around with it. And then once you have a mesh that you like, I just you got to be on the mesh tool, which is this one right here. You click on the point that you want to change the color of, and let's say I want to make that yellow. There you go, and it'll go all the way to the next mesh. And this next mesh point over here, it follows a really weird path, and that's the best the computer could do to figure out what I was doing. There is some ways to kind of play around with the mesh if you want to say, oh, actually do it like this, and that's fine. But man, it starts to get a little tricky to work with. I'm going to be honest with you. So if you feel meshes are a little beyond you right now, try a gradient. You could just draw some white on there and then just use an effect to blur it out. So for example, if I took the pen tool and just kind of did this, and then I use my effect, stylized feather, give it about I don't know, whatever feather, and then I stick that over here. Now I have this nice soft fuzzy little thing, which would be basically the same as this. So it's up to you if you want to try to use those or not. I want you to consider the design process in this assignment. I want you to think about your color scheme. I want you to think about contrast. I want you to think about symmetry and balance, and have fun with it. This is your design. This is an assignment I'm doing by your request. The only thing I didn't really finish is this top part. I could probably spend some more time on that, but it's been an hour, so I think that's enough. All right. I'm going to let you guys go ahead and experiment and get started today. Tomorrow, I'm going to give you guys a tutorial that kind of takes you through it a little bit more carefully. If you're having a hard time with the pen tool, please don't be afraid to ask your partners for some help. I'm not here to help you, but don't get frustrated. Don't feel like you can't do it. Just ask somebody to show you once again. And remember, you can always go back with the direct selection tool and edit your points. Word of caution, if you're going to use meshes, make sure it's perfect before you add the mesh, because it's really tricky to go back and edit the points once you put a mesh in place. All right, good luck, and I hope you guys are having a great week. Bye.